Rudy Gobert, his message to Shaq is, we.
Does LeBron get another championship before he exits out?
I don't think so. I think it's the young boys' time now.
Right. Stephen A., and we're not going to take your advice. You're a Knicks fan. You're a fucking scrub. Bill Belichick and his girlfriend. She killed a Hard Knock deal, which they were supposed to come out on Hard Knocks. Thank you for watching our show. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date with all of our content.
Beyond the narrative. Beyond the narrative. Best in class, so pray for my peers. Slingshot bullet that's clear. Your weak shots couldn't pierce through bulletproof ears. A martyr, a menace. I'm leading horses to drink and pulling teeth like I'm feeding the dentist. Beyond the narrative.
Welcome to another episode of The Crossover. Today's episode is brought to you by BTN Connect, powered by Athlete Narrative, the all-in-one recruiting platform helping athletes get seen, get signed, and get to the next level. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Yes, sir. Let's go, Andy. Let's go, Neil.
A lot of things going on in the NBA.
Yeah.
The Lakers get bounced fittingly in 5 games. A lot of the experts, so-called experts, were saying that the Lakers were going to win in 5. That didn't happen. Rudy Gobert stepped up.
Big Roo.
So, thoughts?
Yeah, man. Look, at the end of the day, Luka comes into the season, right? It was a polarizing trade. The chemistry, initially was there. Sometimes it's excitement once you get like a new beginning and you got a point to prove. But, man, when you get into the playoffs and you got a young, hungry team, your age showed up. Your lack of chemistry showed up. The lack of adjustments showed up in a youthful coach, right? And so, though the Lakers had a great regular season, they ran into an opponent who was more together. They had more guys step up, and the Lakers were still trying to find their identity. And the last thing I'll say is that their lack of depth in the size category came back to haunt.
You think AD would have made a difference in that series?
Absolutely. AD definitely would have made a...
Do the Lakers win that series with AD?
Well, I don't know if the Lakers are the 3rd seed with AD, right? I think they would have felt like more 4 to 5.
Right. And not have that matchup, though.
Yeah, not have that matchup, but you really can't avoid anybody in the West, right? Because if you're 4 or 5, you could have ran into the Clippers or the Nuggets. And at the end of the day, just looking at that Lakers team, yeah, they're top dominant, right? With Luka and LeBron.
Yeah.
But holistically, man, that team just across the board wasn't built to win in the playoffs.
Right. Nev, thoughts?
No depth as well. Rudy Gobert.
Big Roo.
27 and 24. And I think his message to Shaq is, we. Being that he's French.
Yeah.
And, the only thing I stand
Shaq
on.
had to eat his words a little bit, right?
The only thing I stand on
He
in
did.
France is the fries and the toast. But other than that, man, Rudy Gobert dominant.
I think one of Rudy's biggest improvement from last year to this year is being able to switch out on a perimeter player and not get taken advantage of. I think they scored over him 28% of the time. So he's already historically been one of the best pick and roll defenders, right? But what teams like to do is create those mismatch problems where they have him on Luka or him on a guard, right? And he struggled in that area. Well, he stepped up. He showed a lot of stick-to-itiveness this go-round.
Where do the Lakers go from here?
Well, I think they got to go back to the drawing board. I think they did themselves an injustice and a disservice by not signing a proven big with a winning pedigree, championship pedigree. Dwight Howard was out there. JaVale McGee was out there. At the end of the day, size does matter, right? Rudy Gobert, I think, had 8, 9. I know, right? That's what they all say. But I think Rudy dominated the offensive glass. Yeah. They just didn't have an answer for him on the offensive glass.
So there's talks about Giannis now maybe going to the Lakers. How do you see that being a fit with that current situation?
I can't see it happening. I don't think Milwaukee parts ways with Giannis. He still has about 4 years left on his deal.
Is it 2 years? I think it's 2 years.
I think it's
2 years.
It's 2 years left on his deal.
That's 2 years.
So yeah, it's possible that they could consider moving him, but maybe in his final year,
right?
If they know he's not going to re-sign,
right?
But you have to. It's a balancing act, right?
You think it's a situation where the Bucks want to do right by Giannis because of everything he's brought? Eventually, he's going to leave.
Yeah, well, at some point, if he indicates that he wants to leave, you got to try and you can't get Dallas Maverick, right? You can't get no first round picks and all those different things, right? So you have to if you're gonna do a reset, You want to be able to get some talent, some good ball players, but you also want to have some future picks.
Right.
And yeah, he's put in work and things like that. But like in small markets, man, it's so hard to come by those players. So it's really important that they retain their talent. However, if that talent is going to leave eventually, you do have to try and extract the value.
So I'm
from
going to ask you a very loaded question.
Okay.
Does LeBron get another championship before he exits out?
I don't think so. I think his championship days are over unless he gets moved or they get somebody in another piece because they have Luka, right? Like so that's a big piece, right? That's setting them up for the future. But Luka is so deficient in the defensive area that you can't like just win with LeBron and Luka. You have to have more balance, more size. You need some explosiveness off the bench to be able to come and have some production. So if it stays like where it is right now, I don't think so. Now, if he moves and they move him to a contender, a younger team that might be on the cusp of getting there, or a veteran team like the Warriors where they have a seasoned vet team and he comes together, that's yet to be seen. But as far as him getting a championship, I think it's the young boys' time now.
Right.
I don't think it's. I think his championship days are behind him.
Nev?
I'm in 100% agreement. What more does he need to do anyway? He's 40 years old, still playing top rate ball. I don't know. I just looked at that Laker team, and I was not impressed with them from just looking at them from the eyes test. Obviously him and Luka. I mean, you got two great.
I mean, they were humming it up until LeBron got hurt. Once LeBron got hurt with the whole groin issue, that's where this thing started falling apart.
But I just look at so Minnesota's a bunch of young bucks, took them out, and then it just gets deeper. Like the mobs just get deeper, man. OKC's no joke. Denver would punish the Clippers are. But I mean, there's no free lunch, man, in the Western Conference.
Absolutely,
and I just look at the Lakers, and I don't see them top heavy, top three. I think exactly what Katie said. If AD doesn't go, then there are 4 or 5. I just see them back of the pack. 7-8 team is my opinion.
Right.
When I look at them,
we'll see what happens there. Yeah. So moving on. Giannis and Halliburton's dad get into it. The Pacers bounce the Bucks. Man, just another incident with another parent. But what are your thoughts there, Katie?
Yeah, I didn't like it. Personally, I didn't like it. Obviously, we've been critical of T. Morant on the show and some of his antics on the sideline. At the end of the day, man, like you're there to support and guide and cheer, right, for your babies, for your boys. And like too often, I think parents, inject themselves into the action, right? They want more, right? They want more fame, more notoriety. Like at the end of the day, man, like, you've done your job. You've gotten your kids to this point. Take a back seat. Let those kids, have their way. You can't go to a job at Apple or a job at Google or Disney or anything like that and, taunt, the opposition. And so I don't think it's a place in basketball for that. I don't like the way it was handled. That could have really escalated.
Agreed.
That could have escalated. It's a very vulnerable time for a player when they lose a game.
And the NBA can't allow that to happen. You're getting your superstar player getting put in a position where it can turn into a real bad situation.
Absolutely. And the Pacers know something about, brawls.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they do.
So like I think it has to be addressed. I think you see some remorse, from Halliburton and their family. But at the same time, man, it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Tyrese said the right things, right?
He always does.
Yeah, he said the right things. I think there's an epidemic in this country.
Oh, man.
And it's called living vicariously through your kids and taking it a step too far. And that's what you're seeing in today's...
We are absolutely in a societal situation, man.
Yep.
It's NIL, parents getting involved with their kids.
Hey, man, it's the Kris Jenner effect.
Man.
Yeah,
I mean, I hate it. And really, and honestly, whatever Giannis would have given him, he would have deserved.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I mean, you got to be the parent, not the little brother.
Yeah.
That's like little brother behavior by these parents. I don't get it. It's almost like they are living their dreams of being a professional athlete through their kids, and they got to learn how to separate the two, and you're the parent.
Yeah, man. It's unfortunate. That really could have escalated, man.
Yeah.
Been a
bad look.
Yeah.
Bad look. So hopefully they put it behind them and we don't see that type of incident happen again. I can't guarantee it'll probably happen again because, I mean, these parents are out of control, but that's...
Yeah. And we're talking about that as opposed to, like, Indiana taking care of business and, the Bucks kind of having a meltdown, being up 7 points with less than, a minute to go.
Let me tell you, Indiana's going to be a tough out.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
They're not going to be an easy out.
They got a good team.
Yeah.
They got a solid team.
Yeah. All right. This show is brought to you by BTN Connect, powered by Athlete Narrative. Parents, you're probably spending thousands and thousands of dollars trying to get your kid recruited and going nowhere fast. But with this app for $15 a month, solves all the headaches that you're going through. And this app is backed by AI, which saves you a ton of time, and you don't have to write manually and trying to track these coaches down. Be sure to hit the link in our description or in our bio. Sign up now. All right, so the Knicks lose at home. Pistons, they play tonight, Game 6. But the question that I have for you guys is, if the Knicks end up losing this series, does Thibodeau keep his job?
Good question. Look, in the NBA nowadays, you can be a champion. You could be coach of the year, and you can be removed from that spot. So anything is possible. But I just don't know who you replace Thibs with, right? I think that team embodies his personality. They play like his brand of basketball. Obviously, he plays his guys quite a bit as starters. And so a lot of people, disagree with that tactic and that technique. But I don't think it'll be a disappointment, if they lose this round. I think it'll be a disappointment.
Thibs is getting a lot of heat because he didn't take the timeout, and Jalen Brunson, I believe Cat, were on the sideline with 20 seconds left in that game, and end up, losing that game instead of bringing them back in.
Right.
And he's taking a lot of heat.
They also stole one from Detroit.
Yeah,
that is true,
sure.
2 games earlier.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So things even out in that regard. I don't think Thibodeau goes anywhere, though. Katie said it. Who do they replace him with?
Yeah.
He's a proven entity. He has had a lot of success from where they were, meaning the Knicks, and their lack of success in years past. And, Detroit also did our boy Troy Weaver wrong.
Right. They do.
Who helped build that situation out of the basement.
Yep.
And vanished him.
Well, he got a big position now in New Orleans.
Right.
I think he's the vice president of basketball operations. So congrats to our boy Troy.
Had to just throw that in.
Yes, sir.
Now, moving on to the Heat, they get swept. The last 2 losses of that game was atrocious.
Yeah.
You've never seen that from a Heat team. There's a lot of people calling for Pat's, retirement. And Stephen A. in particular says, he's saying that it's time for Pat Riley to move on and for Spoelstra to become president of basketball operations. KD, or go ahead, Neff.
Excuse me. Let me just say this. Not only did the Heat go out bad, that is the worst beatdown in a 4-game series
Ever. Oh yeah.
Ever. That's how bad they got the brakes beat off them. That being said, maybe it is time for Pat Riley. I love Pat Riley. I'll always be a huge fan of his. But sometimes, I guess he has earned the right, though, to go on his terms. But, he's taken rightful criticism.
Yeah. Look, you got to know when to hold them, when to fold them. So I'm going to attack the first part of it, right? The Heat were a 10th seed going into the play-in tournament, right? And they ran up against the best team in the East. So there's a big discrepancy in talent and pedigree as far as team. The second thing is, like, you lose your best player, and he's at his best in the playoffs when you get rid of Jimmy Butler. So you got a lot of guys who never had to do it in that moment. The play-in tournament does take a little bit out of you, and especially because they had to claw and scratch even in the play-in to get to that point.
Yeah.
The second thing I'll say is that I think eventually Pat will hand the baton to Spo. I do think he will, right? But it's going to be on his terms. It's going to be on his timeline, and I think that will happen soon. I don't think it'll happen this season, this summer. I think he'll get another opportunity to kind of rebrand and rebuild the roster through free agency, through the drafts, through making moves. But I think at some point it will be a healthy transition for Spo to kind of elevate and then pull one of their coaches up who they've already developed.
Eventually, the day's going to come, right?
It's going to happen at some point.
I don't think that the day is today.
No.
And, people have short-term memory as a society we live in. Dude, these people were just in the finals 2 years ago as an 8 seed.
Absolutely.
Okay? They took the Lakers to a Game 6 in the bubble in the finals. I mean, we have been competitive. We've made, I don't know how many Eastern Conference finals. I mean, you have a competitive brand of basketball. You're not going to win it every year.
No, you're not.
And he had to make a decision with Jimmy, right? Do you pay Jimmy $120 million is what he wanted for 2 more years? Or do you say, let's scratch this, we didn't win with Jimmy, and let's try to rebuild this thing in the summer? So we're reacting in the media, and I think a lot of it's to get, clickbait and all that crap. But the reaction is overreaction right now. Let's see what this looks like down the summer. Because this move was made with Jimmy to make a move in the summer.
Yeah.
Let's see if they get a Giannis. Let's see if they get a KD and revamp this whole entire situation. So we need to pump the brakes a little bit, and let's see what this looks like the next 2 or 3 years before we make, we're trying to push him out the door when this franchise has been successful the past 20 years.
And it's
one of the best in all of basketball.
Be realistic. He's also 80 years old, so it's not like grandfather time's on his side, right? He's up there in age.
Yeah.
Not that affects his ability to scout or be what he's been.
So man, he's clear as a whistle. Donald Trump is clear as a whistle.
I'm in agreement.
I mean, 80 years old, and he's running the free world.
Yeah, I saw him the other day, man, on I think Udonis's podcast, and that hair was slicked back perfect. He was still sharp with his words. He's still fit.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, man, like just because you get a little bit older, it's a state of mind, right? And he's a young 80. Yeah. He's not like an aging 80.
That's true also, yeah.
People want to judge success on wins and losses, and I get it. That's the world we live in today. But look at the foundation he's created here in Miami, and that's why they're able to recover every 2 to 3 years, 4 years from certain situations.
He is the Miami Heat.
He is 100%. So, like Stephen A., and we're not going to take your advice. You're a Knicks fan. You're a fucking scrub. We're not going to push our guy out. He's going to go on his terms. That's
right. Absolutely. He's earned it.
He's definitely earned it. All right. In other news, Bill Belichick and his girlfriend.
Oh.
I don't like talking about people's personal relationships. That's not what we do here, but it is trending. And it seems a little odd what's going on in Chapel Hill. She's basically the COO of Bill Belichick. He had a CBS interview, and she was sitting on the side and basically saying, yes, you can say that, you cannot say that. She jumped in the middle of certain questions that were being asked. There are things coming out of the University of North Carolina stating that they're a little bit worried about this situation. This chick has total control over Bill's situation, not below the belt, but every aspect of his life. So we got family members that are concerned that's coming out, friends of his that are concerned. So I'll start with you, KD. What are your thoughts?
It's layered, Obviously, anytime there's such an age gap and things like that, it looks a little awkward, but it's not like we've never seen it before. We've seen examples of
Joe Biden and Joe Biden.
Well, we've seen, a lot of different examples of somebody dating, younger.
Right.
Right. What I'm a little bit surprised at is like Bill Belichick has been a guy who's like been such a figure, right? Such an authoritative figure in the way that he runs business and the way that he engages with the media. He's been a no-nonsense guy, right? And so you're seeing a little bit of shift in him. I actually see him smiling a little bit more. It seems that he's a little bit happy. So maybe, the youth is rubbing off on him a little bit. But anytime, you have somebody on the outside having influence on somebody as successful and powerful as Bill Belichick, it looks a little bit like, whoa, we're not used to that.
Yeah, definitely not. Nevin.
The cutoff sweatshirt is in. It's an interesting dynamic. I haven't given it much thought. It doesn't bother me.
Right.
Dude could do whatever he wants, man.
Right.
He's got 7 Super Bowl rings.
Yeah, so she killed the Hard Knock deal, which they were supposed to come out on Hard Knocks. She wanted to be, I guess, subject matter in the Hard Knocks, and Hard Knocks told her to go fly a kite, and they killed it. They were about to announce that they were doing University of North Carolina football for Hard Knocks, and she killed that whole entire deal. Listen, man, I find it odd, man, because Bill's one of these guys is such a control freak, and to now have this chick basically running to the point of emails. She says she's the COO of Bill Belichick Productions. The company don't even exist. Yeah, so something's going on, and it's just not a good look. You're coaching 18, 19, 20-year-olds. She's walking on the field with little short dresses and boots.
It fits today's world.
It does. The WWE.
Yeah, you know what it is.
Yeah.
I'm next up for managing position in the WWE. You know what it is.
And Bill being so guarded with not bringing attention to the wrong things, this is very off character for him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I feel you. I feel you on that.
It's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens there, man. We wish you all the best of the luck in the world there, and hopefully you don't have a heart attack banging her. But anyways, moving on. So Jordan Travis, terrible injury at Florida State. I'm still, I'm of the opinion if Jordan would have been healthy, they would have had a real shot of winning the national championship. Couldn't have been a nicer kid. Brought Florida State back to prominence. I think he was a big part of that. And I just hate to see that he didn't have his shot to, continue his football career and really get on the other side of this injury. But what are your thoughts, Nevin, on Jordan and what he meant to Florida State and to the college football?
When he started off, I thought he was horrible, and he really he earned a lot of respect from me with the way he played that last year. And yeah, he doesn't go down. They got a legitimate chance to play and win that title. Agreed. Yeah, it was a bad loss, and they didn't get their game, Florida State, obviously, because he did get hurt. Yeah. And it's sad. He had a really good college career. Yeah, solid. Yeah, put them back on the map.
Yeah, sports is the hurt business, right? At some point, you're either going to get injured, right, or you're going to get fired, cut, waived. Mm-hmm. It's the hurt business, right? And it all has an expiration date on it. So it comes to an end. Some people are fortunate enough, like LeBron, to play 20 plus years, but the average career as an NFL player is less than 3. I think it's the same, like less than 4 years for an average NBA
2.5
player.
years, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the hurt business. Obviously, man, he had a great impact, right? And sometimes when you get out of it early enough, you're still young enough where you're still athletic enough that you can go and transition into something else. I think he's going to be a hell of a coach if he kind of goes down that route. And there's a lot of guys like him who get into coaching early enough where they kind of go through the assembly line of growth and development as a coach, and they come out in 5-10 years. And now they're a head coach. He might be the head coach in Florida State in 5 to 7 years. You just never know.
Yeah. You know what? And he's charismatic enough. If he wants to get into his media space, he has a job here at BTN Sports, because I'll give it to him in 2 seconds.
I know that's right. Let's grow. Let's build.
Yeah, absolutely. I sent a comment. He wrote just a beautiful letter to the fan base at Florida State, and I put a comment on there. I said, listen, man, you're one of my favorite guys all time at Florida State, and I'll tell you why. Not because of what you did in the field, but how you faced adversity and how you battled. You were to the point of where you were going to give up playing quarterback and go to receiver to do what was best for the team.
Right.
And Norvell walked you off the ledge, right? And you hung it out when, our fan base is ruthless when we're losing. Terrible fan base. And he stuck it out like a man and brought our program back to prominence. So I got nothing but respect for that kid. Yeah. And I wish him nothing but the best. And, man, I think the future's bright. And I told him this in the comments. I said, God has called you to do something else.
That's right.
Yeah, so, I can't wait to see what
that man, good luck, champ. Go get him.
Yes, sir.
Go get him in the next phase.
All right, moving to the NFL draft. We're bringing in our insider expert, Nico Casares. So now we have Nico Casares joining us. We're going to recap the draft. He hit on 7 out of the 10 first picks, which I was very impressed by. The one I'm particularly impressed by is Ashton Genty going number 6, a 5'8" running back selected that high, and playing at Boise State. I didn't think it was warranted at that pick, but he did go at 6 like you called it. So, Nico, talk to us, buddy.
Yeah, man. In regards to the Ashton Genty pick, I think that every sign points to that, with Pete Carroll always needing a lead back and whatnot, plus the fact that he almost broke Barry Sanders' season rushing record. He could be that big bell back, most yards after contact in the NCAA, etc. I think it wasn't the most warranted pick, but I could see that why it happened.
Right. What was the biggest surprise in the draft, other than Shedeur Sanders, because that was the biggest surprise, but other than Shedeur, what was the biggest surprise? Which some would say that the receiver from Arizona, Ted, being the first receiver picked, would be one surprise.
Some people had him as high as 5. Tom McShay's on reports saying he had him as low as number 50 overall. I think it was warranted. I had the Panthers in my top 5 passes per day, but I think the biggest surprise, and I think the biggest deal of the draft, is Will Johnson going in the second round.
Yeah, what do you think about Shedeur falling to the 5th round?
I think after reports, I think it's warranted, believe it or not. He doesn't know how to play in a system from what it seems. And the other thing is that if you have a second-round grade on a guy, especially a quarterback, that means he can come back and be your backup. Do you want all the baggage that comes up with the backup quarterback? You have to ask yourself those questions, especially as an NFL executive.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. It could create a distraction for your organization, him being a backup, and then obviously Dad. Which let me tell you, they handled it pretty graciously. I would say if I have to give some type of credit to the Sanders camp, and I think they got humbled a little bit, but they have said all the right things. Shedeur has said all the right things. So it's going to be interesting to see him go into that situation and how he's going to conduct himself and do business there. Do you see him potentially being a starter day one in that situation?
No, not day one. Especially, when you're drafted in the 5th round per se, there's still a money thing involved in the NFL. He's being paid less than Keyon Gabriel, and they have 5 other quarterbacks on the roster. Can he outplay a veteran in week 1? I don't think so. Do we see him start at some point in the season? 1,000%.
So who do you think's a starter day one?
Flacco or Pickett?
Okay. That Dylan Gabriel pick, that was a surprise, and that was a little bit of a head scratcher to me, in my opinion, for whatever that's worth. I don't think he's an NFL guy. I just don't think he's that guy.
So he comes from the Wolstein system, which is Oregon's offensive coordinator, who has a great track record. You see what Bo Nix did. Bo Nix and him are completely different. I will say that. But he does have a good track record. He's very productive in college football. I forgot he's top 5 in every passing statistic in college football. But then I, on the strength of being a lefty, I don't think it translates. I agree it's a head scratcher. But again, we don't know what goes into it. Same thing with the Shedeur interviews that's all coming out now. We don't know what goes in an interview. We don't know what goes into the team or how they sit until Gabriel fits.
Yeah, he's a poor man's Tua, right? Like,
yeah,
that's the comparison. I mean, that's what I would compare him to.
Very poor.
Yeah. Yeah.
275 million poor.
Yeah. How do you see Dylan Gabriel translating at the next level?
You actually asked Nico the question I was going to ask. I thought that was a very odd pick, and then it makes it even more, like, why not draft Shedeur Sanders in the 3rd round? I didn't get it. It just didn't make sense unless they're stashing quarterbacks for trade bait.
Mm-hmm.
I have a better one. Quinn Ewers going in the 7th round. That might have been more puzzling than Dylan Gabriel.
I mean, that's the argument for NIL right there. Why do you not go back to college? Why do you leave college?
He left $8 million on the table.
Yeah, no.
Would you have taken Carson Beck or Quinn Ewers at University of Miami? If you had to pick one, who would you have taken?
What's the money?
Let's say it's even.
Great question. I don't know. Toss up.
It's a toss up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would take Ewers over him.
Yeah.
Just because the way Carson ended the season with the injury, you don't know how he'll come back.
Yep.
Obviously, he was ranked very high going into this year, but had some setbacks. He didn't have the best season on the field, but he took the NIL money, right? And he's able to extend his career, make some money, and he has an opportunity to redeem himself. He's got big shoes to fill after Cam Ward, came and represented down here in South Florida. But I'm optimistic about Carson. Right. He's a high pedigree guy.
Yeah, let's see what happens with him. I'm 50-50 on him.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this about Carson Beck. He had an up and down year, but I will tell you, when he was humming, man, they were down 28-0 against Bama. He brought them all the way back.
Yeah.
Well, remember I told you that now I can see where this kid's a top round pick, first round pick in that moment there. But then he,
no, yeah, his inconsistency is,
and I think some of that had to be Georgia's receivers. They had a lot of drop balls,
no receivers, and their offensive line was suspect for what they're used to.
Yeah. Where do you see Carson Beck going next year in the draft, Nico?
I mean, it's all going to depend on how he plays this year. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's true. Do you want to take an older guy instead of taking a flyer like a Drew Allaire who has this big arm, kind of mobile, or do you take a Lenore Sellers from South Carolina over Carson Beck, something like that? I think Carson Beck's a second rounder. Like, if you want to put a definitive thing on it.
Second rounder?
I was asked on someone's show the other day, Who do I see as the first pick in the draft next year? So obviously, the sexy pick's Arch Manning if he comes out, right? But I went with Garrett Nussmeier.
That's a good pick.
I think just because of his dad's a coach, like it's just in the genes. I think he's like that guy.
Nico, are you high on Garrett?
I am second. I think Allaire should be one right now.
Right.
The pedigree, yeah, Garrett has it, but Allaire has playoff experience. The big arm. Penn State has a plus receiving core this year compared to what they had last year. I think he's going to kill it this year, and I think he's going to be very good. And Allaire's 245.
Right.
You can't teach that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So who are some of your biggest winners in this draft and biggest losers?
Yeah, so I have like my 5 draft classes here. I'll just run through them real quick.
Okay.
So I think the Giants, Jets, Panthers, Cardinals, and I think the biggest winner, without a doubt, is the Patriots. Without a doubt.
Why the Patriots?
So we'll start with the Patriots. You get Will Campbell, franchise left tackle. You get Travion Henderson, whose pass protection film is amazing. You have time, go look at it. Incredible, big playability, helps, again, what is this all point to? Helping break May out. Kyle Williams, receiver from Washington State, 1,100 yards last year, ultra productive. Jared Wilson, center, Georgia. Again, what does this do? Help out Drake May. And then Craig Woodson, safety from Cal, 6 feet, a little undersized, but at the end he had 226 total tackles in his career at Cal, ultra productive. I think the Patriots killed it.
Yeah,
I got one question. Who is Mel Kiper anyway? You're our Mel Kiper, man.
100%. 100%. Nico, what do you think? I mean, we have a lot of fans that or people that watch our show that are Dolphins fans because of our local flavor. What do you think the Dolphins, my perspective is they did what they had to do in the draft, but I want to see what you think about the Dolphins draft.
I'm going to slightly disagree with you there, Andy.
Okay.
I don't think you can take D tackle with the first at 13 in this case. I know Kenneth Grant's a monster. He tested out this world, etc. You need a Christian Wilkins replacement. I get it.
And you lost Campbell as well. Calais Campbell.
I get you.
Yeah.
But Taylor Ramsey's aging. You lost Javon Holland.
Mm-hmm.
How do you not go get the Jim Thorpe Award winner at DB?
Sure.
To me, that's a big question.
Right.
And then the other thing is that.
But I think those type of guys you can find in free agency versus trench guys. You usually got to go draft them because they're not good ones. Are not that easy to find in free agency, or you have to pay a pretty penny for them.
But then at that point, how do you take offensive line with Tua sack rate, his injury history, etc.? I know they addressed in the second round with the Arizona offense.
Yep.
But you have Justin sitting there.
Yeah.
Yes, I get it. The ACL concern, the injury, I get it. But that guy would have been a top pick if he was never hurt. At that point, take a flyer, take your franchise left tackle. To me.
What are your thoughts on Chris Greer?
I think he needs to go. I'm going to be honest with you. I think the Mike McDaniel experience, this is the last year. If it doesn't go well, you have to fire him, ship him, whatever you want to put it. And then he has an unproven history at this point with draft pick.
Right. Yeah, I think you share that same sentiment with the Dolphin fan base. I mean, a lot of people want to see him go. They're not very happy with him, but for some reason, Stephen Ross keeps him around. And, you see the rumors. What does this guy have on Stephen Ross? But
even look, like his best draft pick was a second rounder, Robert Hunt, one of the top guards in the NFL per se, and they let him walk for nothing.
Right.
How do you let that happen?
Yeah, some of the things are very questionable. You spent a lot of money on your receiving core, and you see, the production's gone down there. You gave Tua $220, plus million with all these injury concerns. And mind you, he had these injuries concerns coming out of Alabama, and you get 4 years with him, and he hasn't been able to stay on the field, and you still give him $220 million. So it's very hard to understand what they're doing over there with the Dolphins. I thought it was like type of draft for them. It wasn't very flashy. They addressed some of the needs they needed to. They wanted to get help up front, which that's where you win in this league. And it was, if I had to grade, it's probably like a C+.
Yeah, C+.
Yeah.
But even still, if you look at it, I'm going to turn this question back on you. Would you take Tua or Jackson Dart?
If I would take who? Jackson Dart or Shedeur?
Or Tua?
Oof. Tua's proven, man. Tua's proven in the NFL that he can win games in the right type of situation. He doesn't beat anybody, but you can get 9 or 10 wins. You know, Jackson Dart still remains to be seen. Who has more upside? Jackson Dart.
Right. So that's what.
Yeah, the upside is with Jackson Dart. Yeah.
You take a flyer and you try at the 13th pick. I'm not saying that's what
the move shouldn't have been. The move shouldn't have been, or the question shouldn't have been Jackson Dart or Tua. It should have been Justin Herbert or Tua.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's just
there's the one.
Yeah. Well, that's Herbert all day for me, and that's why I kind of, boycotted the Dolphins ever since they took Tua in that pick, because it was a head scratcher. You got a guy that's 6'5" that throws the ball a mile, and his head and shoulders, in my opinion, just from a ceiling capacity, and you take a guy that's 5'9" and throws hitches all day. It was just very, very, very head scratching for me. But all right, Nico. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the insight. The best in the business.
Appreciate it.
Nico the Great.
All right, buddy.
Appreciate it, KD.
All right, thank you. Peace.
Have a great one, guys.
Yep. All right, gentlemen. Another great show like always. See you guys next week.
Yes,
We'll
sir.
see what the next 4 days bring. This is this cycle. It's a constant moving cycle that brings new surprises every
We can
single
expect scandals
day. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
and curveballs.
Absolutely.
Oh, and shout out to the Florida Panthers making it to the second round.
Great.
Big Panthers.
Something else to talk about
Big
for
Panthers.
two more weeks.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks, man. Peace out.
fellas.
All right, yeah.
Peace.
Beyond the narrative. Beyond the narrative. Best in class, so pray for my peers. Slingshot bullet that's clear. Your weak shots couldn't pierce through bulletproof ears. A martyr, a menace. I'm leading horses to drink and pulling teeth like I'm feeding the dentist. Beyond the narrative.